Okay, so my regular camera is not working. I'm gonna have to do some kind of jugaad like this. Right, so what I want you to do is, if you're doing this in your book, we can take a pencil and just draw vertical lines in about half the page. Don't use the entire page. And the kind of line that I want you to focus on making is a line that skims on the paper. It needs to be dancing on the paper. So that's one thing. The second is how you hold the pencil, and in how many ways you can draw a line. Now, normally when we hold a writing tool, we just have to make very small movements. So we have a very static arm. We don't draw more shapes which are more than about a centimeter at best, but usually even smaller than that. 3 to 4 mm is the size that we are drawing. So we can get away with a lot of funny grips. So some people will hold pencil like this. Some people will even weird grips. They'll do something like this. But for pencil sketching, what I want you to be able to have is the ability to hold the pencil very deftly so that you can keep making these changes in where you hold the pencil, how far you hold it, and how you can change the grip on the fly. It doesn't become a conscious action. Now, those of you who've got a grip that's like this will find it a little difficult to do micro movements. What I can do very easily like this becomes very difficult, and it engages the whole arm. So you might have to move your whole hand, the entire arm, to create shapes like circles, when I could probably do this with just my fingers. So these are the things that I want you to note and either uh, overcome some of them or just learn how things work within whatever grips you have. So when we are starting the lines, I'm just going to make them till half the page, and then the rest of the illustration we're going to do in this half. Don't move your book. Keep it right in front of you at that's exactly parallel to your body. And you can draw straight lines about a centimeter apart. So as you draw, because you're not moving your book, your grip will necessarily change just a little bit so that you can start making straight lines. Otherwise, they start becoming crooked here. So about 8 or 10 of these is fine till you come to half of the page. Now these have been drawn coming top to bottom. Now you will draw the line bottom to top, which is a very unnatural way to draw. We hardly ever use this in any kind of drawing, unless of course you're making something like a mural, which requires you to connect a line from the bottom to the top or in an unusual direction. So we are trying to make lines on in the space between the existing two lines. And here too, you can just experiment with your grip and see how you want to hold the pencil. Then we are going to make lines that go from left to right. Again, if you're tempted to do this, don't. Keep the orientation of the book exactly the same. With that kept in one orientation, you will be forced to change or flex your hand in different ways in order to create the line that we want. And as you come lower in the page, you realize that you're holding the pencil a little more upright. Here, you're probably holding it like this or like this, whichever you want. All of us can have different grips. We don't have to have one single grip for this. Now this was from left to right, and then we're going to make lines from right to left as well. Again, a very unnatural angle, so you might get very wonky lines. But don't worry about the direction of the line. What we're looking at is the quality of the line. So the quality of the line needs to be nice and light and confident. So the difference between a confident and a less than confident line is when, say, if I ask you to make a circle, there's one um, technique I've seen where people who are not very confident of their line will do something like this. If I want to make a circle, they will build on a previous line and move a few centimeters or millimeters ahead and try to create a shape like this. Now, this is fine, but you see how many lines you need to make to create one circle. There's another way of doing this in which you can just move your hand in the air above the space that you want that circle to be made, and then just make it. Again, here there are multiple lines, but these are more confident lines. And these, because of the nature of the sketch, can later on be incorporated as shading into the illustration itself. This we may or may not be able to do that. And then there's a third way where you can make a circle which just goes half and half. So just break it up, but you're still able to make a circle with minimal lines and reasonably good. So this is what we need to get at best. Ideally, you should be able to make a circle in just one swoosh of the hand, and that should be sufficient. So this is the hesitant line, which we want to avoid. And these two are more confident lines, which we want to work towards. And the confidence is not in the ability to make a perfect circle. The confidence, it comes in the line when you realize that you probably don't need an absolutely perfect circle. The line needs to look pretty. So this is what we're working towards. Now, when you're drawing this, there's no agenda. You're not trying to build anything. So it doesn't matter how the line appears. And that's how you will slowly start seeing, when you make a confident line, how your confident line looks. So now after we've done the horizontal and vertical, we will make diagonal lines. Don't change the angle of the book again. Now here, when I'm starting the line, I'm starting it very light. It becomes a little bold in the center, and then I pick it up and it becomes light again. Is my screen frozen for all of you as well?
Yes.
Okay, let me just see what's happening here. It could be an internet issue, but you all can start making the lines.
Ma'am, are you lifting your hand up while drawing the lines? Ma'am, Hello.
Ma'am, you're on mute again.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So yeah, what we're doing is we've drawn the lines going from bottom left to top right. So we need to draw the lines coming in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to hold this a little close and want you to see how as I let the line go, I'm lifting the pen up or pencil up so that I get this trailing line. So I want you to practice making this trailing line also in such a way that it doesn't just flick off. It's a very controlled line. So as you come towards the end, slowly lighten your hand. And also when you're starting the line, start off with a light pressure, add pressure towards the center, reduce pressure, and then lift the line. So we're not just drawing crazy lines like that. You might get a similar effect when you draw lines really fast, but I want you to get the same effect when the line is controlled as well. Now the last direction left. And the opposite of this is again very unnatural. Now, just notice how many different ways you have had to use your pencil so that you get a comfortable grip and a comfortable line. Okay, how's everyone doing? You all must have finished this by now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next one I want you to do is try making circles. And these circles you will be making in a continuous loop. So you're in the same position, going over and over the same area and making the same sized circle in a continuous line. It's next to impossible for all the lines to come in the same rut, but it can happen. When you're doing this also, depending upon the size of the circle you're making, you may see how your hand moves. The smaller the circle, the the motion of the hand. And the bigger the circle, your entire arm will move. We need to do this in both directions, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And in both, try and notice what is happening to your hand, your vision, the speed with which you can make these, the accuracy, all of this. So this exercise, ideally you should do it for 5-10 minutes every day. And I think this is something like money in the bank. Every day you may, if you put 1 rupee in the bank even, it seems like it's nothing, but at the end of the year you have 365 rupees just from keeping 1 rupee away. And it counts that somewhere all of those rupees will make a difference. So the more you do this, the more your hand becomes comfortable wielding a pencil, and you're able to do a lot of stuff with much more ease. This is one third the part of what we need to do in art, is being able um, to move our tools in our hand as easily as possible. The difference between a good artist and a person who is beginning at art is just how comfortable they are with the tool. And that goes not just with art, with anything. A good tennis player and a beginner at tennis will also, one of the differences would be in how comfortable they are with the tool. So the more comfortable you get with this, the more variety of things you can do with it, and therefore then your art starts becoming more deep. Okay, the next thing we'll do is make a spiral going inward from the out in an anti-clockwise movement, and try to make it as detailed and delicate as possible. And always note down the direction immediately after or before you're going to make something, so that you don't get confused afterwards. There's no telling how these spirals were made if you don't make a note of it right then and there. This also helps you to figure out what you might be good or better at. Then we can, excuse me, then we can do, which is something that is used very often in calligraphy practice, is making these spiral shapes in an anti-clockwise direction, but moving forward.
Okay, I found this on the web for is making these spiral shapes.
Sorry. Again, note down the direction, and then you can convert it into clockwise. So you'll find a lot of such exercises on the net if you want to look at pencil shading or pencil sketching. And if you find something new, just do it. There's hajar things that you can do, which is only going to improve your art quality. Now, the next thing that we're going to do will be a shading practice. So what I want you to do is see how the depth of your pencil shading changes. Now I'm using a blue colored lead, which has a certain softness. I think it's equivalent to an HB. And I'm going to try and shade one section of these squares, one of these polygons, in one particular shade. It's a very small shape, but I'm going to try and maintain uniform pressure throughout this and shade it to some available shade with this pencil, with that pressure, just to study how well your hand moves. Now here again, I've noticed that a lot of people have a problem with moving the hand back and forth in a gentle graduating fashion. So making the lines very close to each other, maintaining pressure throughout. are things that I take for granted very often, but many people find it difficult. So just check if you're comfortable with this. Always use one of the lines of the polygon to make a parallel line against. And that's where you can start, that's how you can start getting an even fill. If you go cross, then sometimes you find that making the long and short lines, or shorter to longer and then longer to shorter again, can play havoc with your pressure modulation. But just notice all these things. Now in these circles, we can make just like these circles. Let's make a bunch of circles on the side. And here I want you to try shading these in 3 different ways. One is to just try and make an even shade with minimum pressure. So it's just like a very light shadow of lead that falls on this space, very light, the lightest you can manage. And this is at about 45 degrees to the horizontal of the page. Now you can move the book, by the way. Only for pencil yoga, ideally you should not. The next layer you will do is make a crescent moon-like shape, but you will change the direction of your shading and make it a little more upright, because that's just more comfortable. And then you can just go over and equalize the lead that you have applied around the circle, the highlight, and the rest of the shape. So in this case, what we're doing is layering light and light and light shades of lead, one on top of the other, not going in one shot. Now, the second one, make a very light highlight because you don't want it visible like the first one. And in this case, your shading will be with just lines. So the lines will be visible. And these lines I'm making by lifting my pencil every time. And then if you want to make it darker, again, identify a crescent shape on the opposite side of the highlight that you want darkened, and make lines which are slightly more vertical. They could be even closer to each other, but we are making lines. We're not just rubbing the lead on the paper. Now these two techniques, this is smooth.
Ma'am, can you please show close up? It's very blurred, the video.
Yes, I know. I'll hold it a little closer so you can see it better. Hopefully you can see it better. Even if I hold it close, it takes a while to adjust. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am, but it's quite blurred.
I know, I don't know what to do with it because I've tried everything. My regular camera has just stopped working on me today. So I'm trying to see how you can see it. Okay, give me a second. Okay, can you see it now?
And that's better.
Okay. I think the camera also could not focus on the lines. That's what went wrong. Now, both these techniques can be used together with each other. And one more thing that we can do, and it takes a while for this to become for you to become comfortable with, is to press the pencil down as you come to the opposite side of where the highlight is. So I don't even draw the highlight. I just press the pencil down as I come towards the opposite end. I follow the same process as drawing of the lines. And then I can use just the lead of the pencil and go very close and very lightly using the smooth technique and create a much nicer, smoother detail. So these are important tools when we want to draw florals, because many florals have got such a soft petal shape or such a soft look to them that you don't want harsh lines like these. They look very they look very inorganic. All right, now for the flowers that we're going to draw, I have these roses. There's one rose, one peony, and one sunflower. I'm just going to share screen. Okay, now in this, what I want you to do is first try and draw individual shapes. So break this down into shapes. What we're making here is not a rose. We're just making a collection of lines. So if you look at that, start with each line and see how you have to recreate it. And the other parts of the flower are also just lines around the lines that you've already drawn. So if you isolate just this section, it looks like it's a sleeping 9 or a 6. And you have an extra fold like this. So break everything down to the shapes that you see, to the simplest shape that you see, anything recognizable. And then you will start putting them next to each other the way you see them. So what do you consider? You will consider distances. So if I want to draw the next petal, how far do I take this line? And then the next petal, how far does it come? The new curved line came just about as high as the inside of that number 9. And then I took the line up and possibly joined it. Right? Can you see this? So, I mean, I can see this, but I
Ma'am,
don't.
can you use like a darker color?
Yes, I can. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So give yourself some information like this. How tall do you want to take it as compared to the illustration we have? So is it the same height as the circular part? About the same. And then how far does it come before it has to go horizontal again? So maybe it can come down in an inverted S shape and then just go straight out into the next petal. The next petal being a V shape like this with the fold coming outward. So you can actually talk your way around the construction of this flower. All right, so do you all want to make this flower now? Start with the smallest part, which you can predict, and start in the space. If you're going to do it over here, start in a way that it's somewhere over here so that there is room to grow. Don't make it very close. We will either be making very large roses or we'll be making very small roses. So I would prefer the large one. Okay, so this is how we can draw. When you're making this line, you don't need to draw a full line. You can just indicate. Why? Because then we can, when we're shading, we can make the details. And pay attention to every little shape and how it figures in our scheme of things. Now, each of the lines that you are drawing will be um, building block for the next line that you have to draw. So pay attention to each of them when you're constructing. What is the angle? How far do you go? What comes after that? Each of them is going to be responsible for the next structure to fall into place. So the complexity of the design will be more evident and more convincing and more impressive if we get these proportions as close to the original reference image as we can. So break it down to its components and say, okay, this is just a line. This is a curved line that goes to 2 o'clock. Something like that. It's good enough. How's it going? Is everyone getting this? Okay. If you all are not saying anything, I'm assuming you have no problems, huh? So if you do have a problem, please speak up. Otherwise, I'll just have to assume that you're you're quite comfortable making this illustration. We have to shade it afterwards. So uh, maybe you don't want to make the lines too dark. So this practice helps you to flatten out a three-dimensional object without actually flattening it out. And that is important because all illustration that we make is based off of lines. But when you see any object as a finished object, be it a product or a final illustration, we get so impressed by its final look, whether we like it or not, that our objective analysis of what is a line, where it is headed, and all of that, it can be a little compromised. That is exactly why you must also refrain from judging your work, unless, of course, you have certain parameters to judge by, like what was your previous work, what else have you made uh, on similar lines, things like that. Now, before we start shading this, try making a simple small flower and try shading that. So to get your hand warmed up. So make a circle and to that draw maybe 2-3 petals or 4. And here now you can practice shading such that we create a slight lightness over here and darkness over here. So if I were to just rub my pencil back and forth, this is the smooth shading that I'm doing. Okay, so this is how you move your pencil to create the shade on a petal without having to draw a separate section where the highlight exists. So you should be able to change the pressure of your pencil as you go along. You can also make layers afterwards. So in some places, you would put a second layer of lead.
Ma'am, your camera is really blurred.
Oh, this is my phone camera, so I am at the mercy of whatever the camera wants to do.
Hi, this is Sanchita. Sorry, I joined in late. I had a meeting that ran long. What are we doing?
We're just making, finished making this rose. So what I'll tell you, Sanchita, is watch the recording afterwards of what
Okay.
this is all about. I think you've done this pencil yoga before, but this is just a refresher. And we have created an outline of the pink rose. I've shared it on the group, so you should have that handy. So what
Okay.
I've done, yeah, so what I've done is start from the center and,
Um,
and keep using the lines that you've already drawn as a reference for what next you have to make. So after you've made this, you can work out and say, okay, I'm going to make the next line coming from down here, and it's corollary coming from the right, going forward this way, so on and so forth. So start with the smallest part and then grow outward rather than starting with big parts, because here you're almost like you're constructing an unfurling rose. Okay.
right. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. So if all of you can just give me a thumbs up when you're done drawing the rose, then I'll move forward for the shading. Okay, good. Right. So if you want, you can just start the shading also. It's fairly natural, normal. Shade one section at a time And when you're shading this, try and do a layering of light shading one on top of the other. So how does one do it? When you are shading, do not lift your pencil up. Hold your pencil a little further away than you would when you do writing. And aim to just rub very lightly the pencil against the surface of the paper. It's a very, very light rub. So this is the first layer. It's so, I don't know whether you can even see it. It's really, really barely there. And then based on how you see the picture, you can use the same, change the angle a little bit, the same amount of pressure, and go back and forth. Now in this entire process, try to not rotate your pencil too much, because in shading, our pencils become a little blunt, and that bluntness gives us a fat line, which when we're shading gives us very nice, even, soft shading. Because imagine if this is one fat line, and then you put another fat line on top of it and another one, all these merge, so you don't get too many lines in your shading. And you can keep doing this to increase darkness. So you can use this for and experiment with shading both styles. You have a very Indian style of doing it, or you can also, so what do I mean by that? Let me try and explain to you what that means. I'm trying to figure out myself. Okay, so are you seeing the 3-dimension emerge from the 2-dimensional lines? That is what we're trying to do. It's almost as if we're trying to sculpt the flower on the paper. Now remember to keep the flower very close to you. Your reference image should not be on a screen in front, upright, while you're drawing this flat on the table. So if you are watching something on screen, if your reference image is on screen, hold your book upright so that the angle of your book is closer to the angle of your reference image, the way you see it. That way you can just move your eyes quickly from the image to the screen, image to the screen, and cause less loss of information in the process. Eventually, of course, you can draw anyhow. You can keep the book flat while your reference image is upright. But till then, till you become more proficient, I would recommend do it this way. Now, if you notice any texture on the petals, for the moment, just ignore those textures and go with a very smooth finish of pencil shading. Wherever there is a light edge, try to maintain that light edge. Some petals do have a very thin, light edge. It always helps to keep such things, to notice such things and keep them in your illustration rather than just covering it up. Remember to subtly change the direction of your shading so that the lead can then deposit itself in the spaces between the previous shading.
Ma'am, in the parts of the petal that are like folded towards you, have we just left them blank for now, or I cannot see exactly?
Yeah, so some of them will have a little bit of color, like something over here. But to be on the safe side, folds like these, don't color them. Color everything else, and then afterwards, after everything is done, you can give a little bit of shading in some spaces, but you have to be very discerning. You don't just shade all of it, just a
Mhm.
little bit in a radial round movement like that should be enough, going
All
from
right.
medium to light. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Now, in this shading, also experiment with different things yourself. As much as I'm giving you tips on how you should shade, you can always invent your own way of creating a darker space. For example, while we are moving our pencil back and forth, there's also another way with which you can deposit the lead is by moving the pencil in very tiny circles, especially where you want to deposit a large dark patch. So instead of going back and forth, you can just go round and round and round, very smoothly increasing the depth of color in these spaces. So at any point, I don't want you to wait for a technique to be divulged. Um, you can go ahead and sketch however you want to and figure it out for yourselves, because it's always the end result that counts. If you have an end result that looks great, you could, even if you've sketched with your nose, it won't matter. And trying to figure out one's own techniques is actually um, one step towards making original stuff. Sometimes when you are experiment with technique, you come up with an unexpected result. And that unexpected result could sometimes inspire you to make some kind of hitherto unmade art, either by you or by anyone. So it's important for you to freely explore all these things, and it can start as basic as with the technique of shading. So I'm sure many of you must have seen these hyper-realist pencil sketches. They're really large and extremely detailed pictures of faces or elements like water and fire, and they look like black and white photographs. Absolutely stunning. So these, you must also imagine how the artist must have thought this. Did they blow up a painting and then decide that, okay, I'm gonna make a picture of a blown up painting or whatever? So the idea of creating hyper realistic paintings in a day and age when everyone is still just about getting used to modern art and expressionism, how does it work? Plus also the topics of in realism are real people, so they're not going to be kings and queens or folklore. They are going to be real working class people who are doing what every other person is going to make or do. So within that, how do you allow your sorry, I lost my track of thought. So this is something I want you to try and do. Rub your pencil on paper and be able to get very, very light shades. This is, I think this is a great superpower, to be able to get that very, very light shade of lead on the pencil. I think it came to me quite naturally because I just had a lot of time on my hands, and I felt that that was one requirement that I should just work towards. So yeah, the advantage of this is because the line is so light, even if there are certain overlaps, they won't create unseemly dark patches on your illustration.
So this is what I've achieved till now. Can I show it? I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm just showing it because I don't know if it is right or not.
okay, let me have a look. I'm going to pin it so I can see it better. So keep it held up. Yeah. So what do you think? How is it turned out?
It's looking like it's looking 3D now.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking quite weird because only the middle part of the flower is looking 3D and the rest is 2D.
Yeah. And how is that looking? Is that looking interesting?
It looks like I have put just the middle part of a flower on the drawing of a flower.
So I really like pictures which are half finished because you can see a process. You can see it's almost like a cross section of something. Positioning real or something that is very finely finished next to something that is just a quick line sketch. I find that that juxtaposition makes both of them look very interesting. The quality of line that you make in the rest of the image, that looks impressive. And also the drama of the contrast in the two techniques, that also looks very interesting. Sanchita, how are you doing with the drawing?
I think I'm doing okay. I've progressed about this far.
Okay. All right. So can you lighten your line a little bit?
They're pretty light actually. It's just the
Are they light? Okay, they should be barely visible if you can.
yeah, no, this
Try even lighter.
no, there's like a light here. They look super bright, but okay.
No, even then. Yeah, I think you can make it a little lighter and also lift your pen. That will help you lift your pencil a little bit. And because of that, your line will become light any case.
Okay. I think I'm also drawing with a 2B pencil, which might be.
No, a 2B pencil is what you should be drawing with any case.
Okay, fine. Cool.
So, in my opinion, pencil sketching is the best tool to improve in art more than anything else. And I want you to just think about it and see if you agree or you disagree. You don't have to agree just because I'm saying so, but I would like to present my case for pencil sketching. One thing with pencil sketching is that it is a very modest tool. Even if you have fancy pencils, at the end of the day, it is still just a pencil. So it can easily be obtained by anyone, and everyone can sketch with it. Everyone starts drawing with it as their first writing tool. So you can carry it everywhere. And it's very simple in that sense. It does not need, you don't need water and you don't need brushes. So the opportunities of creating art with pencil are much higher. When you are sketching in pencil, you are effectively negating a lot of information, and that's preliminary information, which is color. Color is like a very magical thing for our eyes. Our eyes get very mesmerized when they see color. But when you remove color from the equation, you start seeing other details. So that itself is a process, the process of eliminating color from the subject in order to render it. Now, when you're doing this, and as you proceed, you'll notice from the drawing to the sketching to the shading, your observation starts becoming sharper. I can already see that this petal, which I am shading right now, is not accurately shaped. It had to be much longer over here, which I've not made. But it's just something to learn. I don't have to make these adjustments here because I'm sure it's not going to change the features of a rose. Now, this sort of face and somebody's face that we know of, and I made a line that represents the nose or the eyes, or the eyebrows, or the chin, the mouth, anything. If it becomes 20% shorter, it's going to impact the face or the features, and that person might become completely unrecognizable because of just that. So when you make it on something like a rose or any flower, you learn the lesson, but without paying the high price of embarrassment, that you tried to make a face like somebody and then it's not looking like them at all. It looks like somebody completely different. So, which in some cases can be a deterrent to try the next artwork. So if there is no embarrassment and if there's no judgment, like in this case, the rose doesn't mind whether a line is drawn a little higher, a little lower, a little longer or shorter than it actually is. It will still continue to look like a rose. The subject, the topic at hand is very forgiving. So while we achieve the same result, meaning accuracy and objective analysis of shapes and sizes, proportions, placements, we are able to do this without ill feeling. At the end of the day, a lot of times you'll notice that you can be affected by the artwork you make. However much you may try to say that it's just art and I'm just a beginner, I'm just starting, if something does not look like how you expect it to look, it will pull you down, and subconsciously or unconsciously, you might find some resistance practicing it again. That will not happen if we are sketching topics like this. The other thing that also happens in pencil sketching is that you automatically start using your hands in different ways. You hold the pencil in different ways. Like I'm holding the pencil really far away, not like when I was drawing. So a flexible hand is always going to make better art. And by flexible, I don't mean how much you can bend or how easily you can touch your thumb to your forearm, not that kind of flexibility. Flexibility is what I mean by flexibility is the ability to switch between tools, use tools with a certain ease of operation, and that only comes with the time you spend with that tool. What else? Just familiarity. I think you should know which pencil to go to when you want to make a particular artwork, how the various pencils also make an impact on your art, things like these. And lastly, it can be extremely relaxing and meditative. When you have a project like that, you have to just observe and slowly finish, just keep shading more and more, adding more and more here and there. Can be very relaxing. Now, as you're progressing, you will notice that with your pencil, you can make maybe a range of 10 different shades from lightest to darkest. The first round of shading should ideally just be between maybe shade 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. And then you do a second round of shading where you start increasing the darker sections and adding more and more depth to your picture. So you don't do it all in the first shot. You finish all of the shading and then you take a call which places you want to add more. So you do a second round of shading. That is how you can start slowly building more depth. That way also, when you are shading with different kinds of pencils, right now, I'm assuming everybody is just using one handy pencil, whichever they're using, not two, three different ones. But you can use a whole set of pencils. Huh? So we have, you have a set like.
For my drawings, I do use like at least 8 pencils.
Correct. So if you're doing that, that is how you proceed. So you don't do all the 8 pencils right from the beginning. First, you can use just one pencil.
I usually start with the middle tone.
That's also good. I would start with something. If you have 8 pencils, I would probably start with the second, not the lightest, but the second.
I start with like if I am using approximately like I use 2 very light pencils, 2
Mhm.
medium pencils, and rest of them are dark. I don't always use all 8 pencils in every one of my drawing,
Huh.
but yeah, so I start with like second or third pencil. Then
Right.
I just smooth it out with the first pencil,
Uh-huh.
and in the end I darken it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's how you do it. That's how you have to proceed. What you should avoid doing is in one shot itself create the lightest and the darkest shade. That you should not do because then there's no coming back from those dark shades. And ideally, you should not have to erase at all, especially for topics like these.
And I also use my finger to smudge it out, or also like a tissue.
Use a stump, a paper stump. Have you used a paper
Yeah,
stump?
I use a tissue.
So these stumps are very nice. You get these as a set. Sometimes you get them individually also. A set of 8 or 10 for about $200 or something. I don't know if this will work with my blue pencil, but it definitely works with a regular lead pencil. And this can really help smooth lines. So if you're going to draw things which have a smooth surface, like the skin or rose petals, very delicate, smooth porcelain, all of that, you can use these paper stumps. They're slightly better than tissue because they have a point. And you can then, in places like these, where you need a little detailing, you can really roll that point and make it smoother and smoother and smoother.
I think I'm done with my first layer. How does it look?
Okay, let me have a look. Yeah, I think it looks good. Okay, no, wait, turn that light on. I can't see it.
I actually didn't turn any light on or
Oh,
off.
you did? Okay, so I don't know what is happening.
See, yeah.
There's like a flash that comes. It's almost as if it's auto lighting and then it shuts off.
No, that's because your turned on video, like turned off video shows up, and
Okay. Okay. Looks interesting. Looks interesting. Continue. Now start making the slightly darker tones. But now here's a tip. After you've done so much of shading, you should have a rough paper handy, which has a blank side, which you keep on your artwork and then keep your hand on top of it and then add the details. Because if your hand comes on top, there is inadvertently there is some grease on our hand, whether you like it or not. Even the driest hands have some kind of grease, so that smudges the lines, which are really crisp, and that's really unfortunate. So the bottom of the page must be blank. Even if the top is not, it's fine. And keep it wherever you have the drawing part, just keep your paper, your guard sheet over there, and then shade. And if you move the area of shade, how's everyone else doing?
So I'm almost done. No, I am done actually. I kind of just went all in, didn't do it, in like layers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'll try that next time, but can I show you?
See,
Yeah, just a second. Okay, so yeah, wait.
uh-huh. Okay, one second. Okay, I think you still have some room for more shading. Do you see a little bit of, so I see some dark patches, but
Mm-hmm.
transition from dark to medium to light
Hmm.
can be a little more subtle. So you can do, it's almost as if just go and rub a little bit of the lead closer to the darker edges and smoothen out the transition.
Okay,
Instead
so in the outer petals, because I have a feeling the mixing is not that good.
okay, so see in all of them, like some places where you have the dark patches,
Mm-hmm.
pinpoint right now, there's a dark patch over here between the, let me just spotlight.
Wait, ma'am, your video is paused, or is it just me?
No, everything is pausing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So someplace like this
Uh-huh.
section over here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you've done a very nice dark shade. Okay.
Hmm.
But then the rest is not, it's not merging well. So in some places, it won't, not in all places, between dark and light is there a merge, but there is definitely a merge in some places for sure. Those need to be a little smoother. So you just need to rub a little more lead in those sections so that the transition is less abrupt.
Yeah, yeah, I see that now.
Huh.
Right. Okay.
So this is something that I did almost every day in my 11th standard. When this was in 1989, I was waiting for college to start, and there was a time when we had absolutely no distractions, hardly any TV. There was no cable TV, so we had to find our own ways to entertain ourselves. And I think that turned out to be a good thing for me because I just spent day after day after day sketching. So we had a very nice library around the corner from our house, which had these international magazines. And I used to get those because they had beautiful portraits of models in large sizes, a whole page full uh, of a face. So I would sit and just sketch two, three of them every day. And my goal for myself was to be able to sketch a likeness without using an eraser. So I had to think before I drew the line. I was forced to draw every line very lightly so that if it is not correct, I can obscure it with shading when I get to the shading. So if you can give yourself that those kinds of goals and your own sets of rules. Today I'm going to do this. I'm not going to use an eraser. Today I'm going to use a clutch pencil. Today I'm going to use a blunt pencil and still be able to draw sharpness or whatever. Use an 8B pencil, but still be able to make very light lines. That way you start seeing that you're able to sketch with absolutely anything. And uh, more than the perfection of an illustration that will come over time, what you start becoming is very flexible. You are you are not dependent on your tools for the art that you make. And in time you will find that any challenge then becomes enjoyable. You don't have a pencil, you only have a ball pen. Okay, you start thinking about what can I do with a ball pen. This kind of mental malleability um, is I think rare. But when you want to be a creative person, especially in the arts, we are all expected to be super creative. That's what it stands for, I think, for most people. um, the more you put yourself under limitations, the more creative you start becoming. It's just how the whole thing works. Limitations, I think, are the mother of creativity. So you're forced to think in directions that you never would have before. And unfortunately, if you have surrounded yourselves with all the tools, like a set of 8 or 10 pencils of different darkness, that's try to avoid that. That's always there. That can always be achieved. But can you achieve the same result with minimum, which is one pencil? Okay, so we are now out of time. How's everyone else's doing? Can I have a look? Everybody's work. Do you have any hitches? Can I Very nice, Rana. Just give me a second. Yeah, no. Up, Bhakti. Oh, you're frozen now. Okay, very nice. Very nice. So, did you make the lines in pen, Bhakti, afterwards?
No, ma'am, I really went over them like 5 times or something.
Why? Why? Okay, so you can make those lines very light. They don't need to be this apparent. It's looking lovely, no doubt about it. It's a different kind of style, but it becomes more graphic when you have dark lines around them. But good, this is a good attempt. Now, the other two pictures that I've sent you, those you can use something, you can do something with that as well. That's a very interesting topic to use as well. Yeah, Nikita. Yeah, let me see. Very nice. Sanchita is going well. Sanchita, don't do it so dark right now in the beginning. Try and make it in light to medium tones first, all the entire flower, and then start making it darker. Allow yourself more range.
Okay, fine. I will.
Okay, okay.
No, what happened is the tip kind of like shattered because
Oh,
there was like a hole in it. I don't know how.
so then roll it and draw it from the side. You have to just try all these things. Okay, yeah, Karan's is also looking good. So Karan, you also need to put in a little darker, a few darker spaces.
Can I show the other like sketches
Yeah,
that I have
yeah.
made?
Sure, sure. It's awesome. Very nice. Are you keeping a tracing paper or something on top of this? You should protect this. So use paper tape and tape tissue or something like that wrapped around, not on top of it. Protect it a little bit. Oh, wow, beautiful. Very nice. Excellent. So have you drawn this from a photograph of a bulb or a picture of a sketch?
A picture of a bulb.
Okay, good. So photographs are really good to work with. Ideally, avoid making a sketch of a sketch, but that's also fine. Sometimes sketches are also really nice. And in fact, you can tell how to recreate tonal values. So that's also good. And then what else was I going to say? Oh, nice. Very nice. So another thing that you should do also is to keep a real object in front of you, because that's something that we often don't do. And to convert a three-dimensional object into 2D lines and then shade them and make them look 3D on a 2D page, that's something that we need practice for as well. So that becomes a later stage. So right now, that's why what I've shared right now are photographs of real objects. They're all real flowers. Next thing that you do is go outside and look at a flower, however it is. Don't worry about the quality and try to sketch that. Give yourself about 15-20 minutes, because as the light changes and when you're watching something in real life, in the beginning, you get really tired. It's not as simple as sitting in your. The light may be harsh, you might be uncomfortable. So 15-20 minutes tops, just make a line art. Try and shade a few petals based on what you see in front of you. Sometimes if the light is too direct, you don't see shades and shadows too much, or you might just see one pink shade and a sharp shadow around it. Illustrate it the way you see it. A few petals. So this is like a warm up of drawing something that you see real. And over time, you start increasing that time, how much time you can sit longer and draw real stuff. That way, then we are all, the whole point of this exercise is to get your hand to become much lighter on paper, and your eye to be able to see the shape accurately. It all comes down to what you can observe. Whether you're drawing a flower, whether you're going to draw buildings, everything is what are you seeing and what are you making on paper. So we are making the connection between the eye and the hand stronger. So what you see is what you draw. All right, so try and focus on that. Great. I will send a picture of this on the group so you can probably see it better, because this whole camera setup is just not working. I have to do something more about it. And then you'll see the details also of some more information.
Ma'am,
Okay. Yes. Yes.
ma'am, I had a question that when should we make our lines sharp?
So you should ideally make them sharp when you're drawing them. You should not need to make them sharp afterwards. But in order to reach there, first you can make a few lines which are just approximation make. And then when you are making the lines darker, don't make the entire line dark. You can make a few lines darker, a few parts of the line less dark, because that is normally how you see things in real life. You don't see one hard uniform line running around anything. So that should suffice. Most of the dark lines will come around the darker shapes, and that should work.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so next week we are going to be painting. We'll be making watercolor florals. I'll try and do some abstract watercolors, and I'll also try and do some realistic florals. So if you have any flowers you're curious about painting through the week, just send them to me and we will try and paint those, the ones that either you have clicked images of or they're in your garden. Let's try doing that. I will look for some images anyway, which I will share with you, and I'll show you some painting techniques to do botanicals.
Can we try tulips? Because I find tulips really hard.
All right, okay, I'll keep in mind, so we can try tulips. Send me some pictures if you have. Okay, so I guess that's it then. I shall see you all next week.
Ma'am, I had another question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm all open.
Ma'am, it is in this picture we can see the background has some leaves. So how do we create that blurred leaf background?
How do you think you can create it?
Maybe we use a little lighter shade.
Yeah, that's one way. So if you look closely to what looks like blurred background, a blurred background is literally one where the line is not clear. You don't have a sharp line around an edge. So if you keep the line fuzzy around a leaf, or if there are veins and that vein is literally smudged a little bit, all of it starts looking fuzzy, right? So try doing it like that. No sharp lines, no sharp edges. In fact, you can look for images where you have a sharp flower in the foreground and a very blurred background, or sometimes the foreground is also blurred and the background is sharp. So look for an image like that and try to see, what am I not seeing over here? And is there a clear edge that I can see? Maybe not. How does the edge look? It just looks like a fuzzy dark line, and try to make it like that. So when you have a question like that, it's very important. You can have that conversation with the picture that you see. You can just say, what am I seeing here? What am I seeing? It's all there. The answers are all there. You just have to learn to ask the right question.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to ask, are you having like any calligraphy classes or I think right now?
Not yet, but maybe in Feb we can start. So I'm starting the live in-person art class for adults for just about 3-4 people from tomorrow. And once that settles, then, and also this whole, I don't know what this Omicron situation is, if that settles, then by Feb I can start with 1 or 2 people for calligraphy, but that needs to be in person
Yeah.
because at least in the beginning, so I can get you set and then eventually we can practice online.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Do notify me if you ever like when you decide to start them because I've
I
had like
will.
a super long break.
Yeah. But sometimes you just come over. We'll just sit and do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Okay. So that's it, everyone. Any questions? Okay. So put up your pictures on the group so I can have a look and I'll put up mine as well. And I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.